people like a couple things, just generally speaking. They really like to connect with people when they have something in common. So if you can find something you have in common with someone, it can be little, it can be big. That's why starting with someone who's an alumni of your school can be really easy because they see a younger version of them in you and you're a student. So like play into that because people, when you're a student, people like want to help you and are more open to it.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Townsend, your host. This podcast is for doers, dreamers, and those trying to decide what's next. I, along with amazing guests, will be sharing stories of success, failure, and what's to come. Thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Super excited to have all of you tuning in today. My guest is Emily. She's going to be talking a lot about entrepreneurship, coaching, leading, training, and she was living in Arizona, is now in Texas, and I'm excited to have her on the podcast today. So I'm going to ask you to turn it up, reduce any distractions, because it's going to be some great information. She is an entrepreneur and operation leader, primarily in the recruitment and talent industry. She's the founder and CEO of Advize, a platform helping thousands of students learn about careers and gain confidence through short coffee chat style alumni professional interview videos and AI-powered recommendations. So if you have any teens, tweens, or anybody in the household that is failing to launch, you're going to definitely want to tune in. Emily, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to the show, Jenny, and happy to chat today.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you, is like what season of life you're in or what inspired you to do the work that you're doing today.
Yes, so I'm in the season of life where I graduated from business school in 2023 at UCLA Anderson. At that point, I thought I was going to slowly become an entrepreneur, but then I got laid off from my job. My whole department was cut. And then I went full force into my company, which meant my husband and I needed to move out of LA because didn't have my big MBA girl salary job anymore. Lived with his family in Pennsylvania for a year, saved up money. Now we moved to Austin, Texas, where, the business is scaling. I'm in full entrepreneur life. We're renting. We don't have a mortgage yet or a baby or a dog yet. We're really in that save our money, prepare for the next phase, get my Advize baby off the ground phase is really where we're at now.
That's an awesome position to be in as well. I mean, it's probably very freeing and, motivating as well. So enjoy that space that you're in right now, for sure. Growing a business and starting and having a baby takes a lot of ambition, drive, time, energy, money. And I own my own company, so I'm speaking from experience. I'm thinking of myself 10 years ago. I don't think that I could have got the business where I wanted it to go if I did have a family and a dog and all those things. I was able to put all my focus into the business, which is super amazing. And it allows you to have the energy to put into that next generation. So that's awesome.
And Jenny, that was kind of my mindset, like jumping into it also, because I think a lot of people might have been afraid and said, oh, I need to go get that big MBA job at that moment in time. Instead, I saw it as I have the least amount of risk at this moment of time. I'm the youngest I'm ever going to be. That's what I want to do. So I'm just going to do it. And then I assume whatever happens, the good stuff will come or fall out of the bottom of it, whether it's the company succeeding or me meeting awesome people or me transitioning all that experience into a better role than I could have gotten if I didn't have this experience. So I actually felt like that mindset helped me take the leap, even though a lot of other people maybe wouldn't have, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you have less to lose for sure, versus having the mortgage and the house and all of those things in place where you can take more risk and really do what you want to do, not making decisions based on, the financials or things like that. So that's awesome. Well, congratulations to you. And I think any of the entrepreneurs that are listening today wish they would have started right at your age. And if I could have started my company in my early 20s, which is kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to start my own company, but my parents were like, you got to go to college, you got to do this. And, I think at times our parents, and I'm seeing this with all the families that are involved in my music school, they have a plan for their children. They have these expectations, they have a pathway, and they're pushing them there, and they're not really tuning into maybe what their passion or what their strengths are, and they're being compared to other people. And there's so much of that. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So before we get into obviously the things that we want to talk about today, Tell us a little bit about the work that you do in the company that you have, because I think that's super, super important before we get into that. So everyone understands what standpoint and where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I'll talk about like the kind of founder story and the why, some of the pain points, our solution, all that good stuff, and kind of where we're at. So the whole idea was born a bit out of my own pain. I grew up in a very small Texas town called Clifton when I was younger, and it was so small there were no stoplights. So I had all this like energy and ambition, but I didn't really have a lot of examples or people to kind of help me get there along the way, so to speak. And even as a competitive athlete, a top student in college, and I did tons of internships, I was kind of like getting all this information. I talked to professionals, you name it. I still left college feeling really lost and confused about my career. And then it kind of hit me when I moved to LA and started working in the recruitment industry, because all of a sudden I had access to and was talking to professionals every single day about their jobs. And in one of my jobs at a big corporate company was to train hundreds of young professionals who had no experience, but they were supposed to go recruit or headhunt someone on Wall Street, in any sort of industry, law, you name it. I had to teach them how to do that quickly. And so I did that by teaching them how to reach out to people and talk to them and just hear their stories, ask them questions like, what do you do every day? Like, walk me through your responsibilities. And I knew that's how people learn, because I was learning so incredibly fast, and so was everyone that I was training. And then in business school, I'd always kind of been tossing around ideas, and I was kind of stuck on something about this because I thought it was a huge problem that people don't have access to real career stories and information from people actually doing those jobs in an easy way. And I thought that was kind of wrong, because I was someone who wasn't really like first generation or low income, and those students even have it way worse. And I was an ambitious, successful person who couldn't figure this out. And so I got really passionate about all of that. And then in school, when I was researching this problem, I realized that almost 80% of college students don't even talk to one professional while they're in college or have a coffee chat, even though this is supposed to be what they're doing according to the career centers, et cetera. And there's a lot of reasons why. You could probably imagine, like time, skill, networks, confidence, all those sorts of things hold students back. And so anyway, I realized there's this huge gap in opportunity and things that the school wasn't offering that I wanted to use, which was, how about we put a coffee chat on video, and we can turn it into a really cool platform that doesn't exist, where students can watch and sort by and get AI recommendations on interview content that's modern from any industry, any role. And one thing that makes us unique, unlike a YouTube or social media, is that we have a framework we developed and tested in business school. This is a standardized question framework that we use during every interview, that we took from top university guides about what you should ask a professional during a conversation like this. So these questions range from like, walk me through your career path, or tell me about what you do every day. What are your main responsibilities? What do you find challenging, or what do you like about your job? And then we cut them into short clips. So a student, instead of spending what we found could be over 25 hours to just talk to 10 people, and who knows how good that conversation is going to be, or if they're the right people, they can now hear from 5 consultants at top firms in less than 5 minutes. And they can give us a couple pieces of information like major, industry, what they're interested in. We'll recommend it to them. And then we capture all the learning and reporting for the universities.
That's amazing. That's so great that you're doing that as well. So when I think about these coffee chats that you're doing, so 2 things come to mind. So we do actually, within our organization, we do coffee and conversation every Tuesday. And that's where our teachers can learn from each other. They can ask questions, they can talk to me, they can talk to our membership director. It's just a way of just coming and having a really safe, open conversation. And then I was just actually considering doing like CEO chats, where kids who have an interest in becoming an entrepreneur or doing business or finding out about careers could come in and talk, or if they're wanting to learn how to market themselves. There's just so much knowledge, and there's so much, I feel like, that they want to learn. They just don't have those resources or those mentors or those outlets as well. So I love that you're doing this because I do believe there is a need. And yeah, there are so many kids that go to high school, they don't have a job, they go right to college, they're not working again, and they're not exposed to the workforce, the real life, and their maybe only influence are their parents, who potentially maybe one of the parents is staying home and one of them is working in an industry that they most likely worked in that industry forever. So I think there's a huge need for what you're doing. Those videos, are those available online? Do they have to be part of your program? Or are they on YouTube? Like how if a parent was listening to this and like, oh my God, I would love for my kid to see this, how would they get access to that?
Yeah, so part of our mission is to provide free access for any student. So there's a version of our website that anyone can go watch. So it's just students.advisehub.com, and that's where all the content is. And so business model wise, when we work with the university or a company, we'll have a very specific like school login that's branded. We'll also do custom content. So let's say one of our partners, let's say Berkeley is one of our university partners, they want alumni interviews. So we'll actually provide alumni services. We'll hire a current student and capture all the content for them. So they're not only getting the version that's out there, they're getting a very like specific segment of only alumni, which is even extra inspiring. Plus it helps develop donor relationships for the university that they otherwise might not have. And then it's kind of paying it forward because the students get paid to network and they absolutely like love doing that and they learn so much.
Value in actually doing that and doing the work. And then that's also building their confidence skills. And not that they're doing sales calls, but they're having to reach out to people that don't necessarily know and learn that skill, which can be really, really scary. So if they're in the business development or they're going to launch their own company, they need funding or they need to get these contacts as well. So I love your story. I love too that you kind of had this idea in college. My music school, which will be 10 in January, actually started as a class project as well. I didn't
Cool.
start it
Okay.
right after college. I started it like after I did corporate, nonprofit, traveled the country, and kind of fine-tuned that business plan as well. And I worked with several mentors for a year or so. So let's get a little bit into a little bit about the podcast and some of the questions that I would love for you to talk about. My podcast is all about relationships and it's personal and professional, and, working with people and helping us become very successful, but also taking ownership of our life and our choices and our actions so we can create the life that we want. Because I think that's super important. I always encourage everyone, follow your passion, find out what you love to do and like live your dream, not somebody else's. And so when it comes to yourself, when we're talking about people, we want to thrive personally and professionally. What would be some tips and tools that you could share with our listeners, whether they're a parent, maybe they're a college student, or maybe they're a stay-home parent that's maybe wanting to get back into the workforce?
Yeah. So you're talking about coming from like a self relationship perspective, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's an interesting question. Personally, from my experience, one of the best pieces of advice I think I've gotten, which is related to what you're saying, is anytime I'd be really stuck or overwhelmed. I mean, a lot before Advize was, I know I want to do something big. I want to do something important. Like, I don't know what it is. And you can kind of like beat yourself up over that because it's a lot easier to know like what you don't want to do than maybe what you do want to do because there's so many things out there. But one of the lessons I've learned really for anyone that you just talked about that I found is no matter how much anxiety, how much worry or questions you have, you need to take action, some sort of action toward an assumption, an idea, anything that kind of sparks your interest, because any of those sparks that you think are normal are not the same sparks that everyone else has, right? I realized that as a child, I was always coming up with ideas and businesses, and like I was like literally counting money for fun. Like people don't do that as a young girl, right? Or I would build Legos all day. And so going back to the point is taking action is important because even if it's the wrong action, you get some feedback of some kind, like yes, liked, no, did not like. So that could be something as simple as joining something, trying something, reading something, engaging something. But if you don't do anything, you're not going to get any closer to anything and you're just going to feel worse. So I think taking action is really awesome and like kind of my solution to stuff. And even in entrepreneur land, if I'm not sure about a decision, I take a bunch of action and then the market tells me if it's smart or not, right? Like I don't know the answer.
Yeah, so 100% I agree with you on that point. Doing nothing is never going to be, productive. I think that you learn what you do want to do and what you don't want to do, the type of bosses you're looking for, the people you don't want to work with. I mean, I think it's as simple as just getting a job or volunteering as well. I mean, you never know who you're going to meet or what you're going to be exposed to or what you're going to learn through those actions. And I always, encourage the same thing. If you're lost, like just take a step forward, find something as well. I know that you had mentioned too that like having, in order to be like successful, like being healthy and creating balance. And so can you kind of, lean into that and give us some tips that you may encourage us to do?
Yeah, I'll talk about that. And then there's one other thing that came to mind also that I want to talk about. But I think at the end of the day, people get really worked up and in kind of this American lifestyle of like go, 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 go to the point where we let other things slide or go away. And I don't know, there's so many phrases out there that are kind of, beaten at this point, right? But like, do you work to live or live to work, right? And if you feel like crap and you're not happy, like you're never going to like enjoy anything. So for me, I'm kind of connecting that to my next point, which is all about personal values. I do love values because it's something that's helped me stay really grounded, learn how to spend my time, almost like defining who I am in my own belief system. Because then you can decide where I'm going to invest my money or how much time am I going to spend doing those things. And you can also look at your 24 hours and see, well, how much of those 24 hours am I doing healthy things? Am I being a healthy person? And guess what? If you want to be a healthy person in this new version of yourself, all you need to do is take more action to spend more time doing things that are healthy. And now with ChatGPT, et cetera, I'm sure you can get plenty of easy tips on things like you can do to start driving things forward. Plus the podcasts of the world of, hey, you want to be those successful people, like listen to what they do and just try to do one thing that they do and start building your day around your values. And then you'll have more confidence of how you're living your life, because if you feel confident about your values and how you're spending your time, it's who you are.
And I think that too, you have more control. And when you have more control, you have less anxiety. And I think too, like also planning it out. So like, I love that you're saying that. So my day is divided into thirds. So third of it is like working on my health. So playing tennis, working out, walking, doing those type of things. A third of it is working. And then the third of it is, having dinner with my husband, walking with my husband, like having time for family and connection or even just friends as well. And that I know has helped me by building that structure. But then also it's, I used to say work hard, play hard. And now I'm like, oh no, I want to play hard. In order to play hard, yeah, I got to get some things. I want to work smart, not hard anymore in this stage of life that I'm in. And I think too that when you are healthy and you are having fun and you are enjoying life, you're going to have better relationships with yourself, with your partners, and with your coworkers. And I think that kind of
Yes.
like enhances your happiness as too. I don't know if you want to add into that.
Yes, I've had periods of my life where I was competitive state softball champion, like one of the best teams in the country. But then also right after college, I didn't have anyone coaching me and I was really hard on myself. Like I thought not eating fats back in the day, you're like not gonna gain weight or whatever, right? So basically horrible food, body, mindset, all that stuff. And I could tell you that from like all the people I've known, my own journey, all of that, if you listen to the most successful people in the world, like one of the, maybe the only thing I know everyone will pretty much promote and agree with is like being healthy and taking care of your health. Because if you, again, aren't healthy, not only can you not enjoy it and like feel all of these good feelings, but you're also not going to have the energy you need to do the stuff you need to do. And like not feel like feeling sluggish or all those things and super tired. It's just you're not as effective and you might be working harder and not smarter just because of your health.
Well, yeah, and you're not even at like the highest capacity, and you'll make mistakes, and then you're not even thinking clearly, and you're not using the best use of your time, and you just allow the distractions. There's so many things. And I see that, in people I know and in team members as well. And like as an employer, I'm always like, don't come into the office until you've taken a walk and you've taken time for yourself. I really want to know that, like, when you get here, you're ready to be at work. And if you're not rested and you're not fed and not fueled, you're not going to be the best employee. And at the end of the day, I'm paying you and I want you to be the best, right? Like, doesn't mean you have to do the best every single day, but I want you to be ready to deliver. And I mean, I've had to send people home and just say, you're not ready to be here. And obviously they appreciate that, but they don't want to be sent home. But at the same time, like, they got to take ownership of their health. And when they're not here or not at work, taking time for themselves, and resting on the weekend. I think you mentioned something about that previously, like go, 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 go is like how a lot of us were brought up. And, it took me into my 40s to be like, okay, I can rest on Sundays. And I'm like, oh my God, if I would have been resting at my 30s or in the startup phase, I would have had more energy, more positivity. I would have had more to give if I would have been rested and not burnt out.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because even now I am better. Like, no one's perfect, right? But even when I'm relaxing, I will sometimes have to tell myself, Emily, you are relaxing right now. Like, you literally don't have to do anything, almost like to give myself permission. Because, when you get a massage or something, someone's like, well, you need to relax. And you're like, okay. But for me, it's a lot harder on my own to actually not do anything, which, is really important and you got to recharge. And I think your employees are super lucky to have you, Jenny, because I mean, how many places in corporate America have a boss that actually cares about their health? I don't know. But I mean, a lot of the environments that I worked in, everyone's so worried about hitting their numbers and hitting whatever that sometimes you're put into these situations that it's impossible to be healthy and like have health. Like when I was living in LA before COVID, right? It didn't seem that bad at the time, but sometimes my driving time would be 40 minutes each way, like super heavy LA traffic to go to a job that wasn't like lighting me up. And then it was like super slammed all day. And so you're just like burning out, but you need to keep your job because you need your money to pay your rent. So I don't want to make it sound like it's so easy, right? But in a lot of these environments, you're in that kind of situation. But maybe if you are, that's when you start thinking about, well, what do you want your life to be and how can I start valuing other things? And, what changes could I make once I save up this much money or once I do this to more align with a healthier lifestyle where I'm not feeling that way? Perhaps.
See, and I think too, I mean, I worked in corporate for a while. Even when I say I work for corporate, I did work for a nonprofit, but it was very much ran like a corporation. And I know that there were times where, like, nobody would go out to lunch except the CEO maybe, but like literally nobody went out to lunch. Everybody worked at their desk, and it was like if you went out to lunch, it was like you were lazy or you weren't getting your work done. And that's one thing that with my company, I want to make sure that they have time to take a break. I'm always like, go take a break. I need you to leave for 30 minutes. Charge. I need you to come back refreshed because our clients, are coming in towards the end of the workday, anywhere from 3 to 8 p.m. because of the way our structure is, and our people come at 10. And by like 3 or 4, if they haven't had a break, they're not going to have the energy. They're not going to have the spark. They're not going to have the smile. They're not going to be able to provide the experience. And I think this is very, very important. So if there are employers out there and you're not allowing your people to take a lunch break, you're paying them to take a lunch break. And every single
Yes.
time that you don't send them on a lunch break, you're basically, I think a lot of times too, like, we forget that, oh no, I get paid to go on a lunch break with my salary and I should take that 30 minutes or take that hour. And I have team members too that they'll just go and sit in this teacher lounge and then they're on their phone scrolling. I'm like, put the phone down. You need to like break from the technology. And that's
Yeah.
another thing that helps with our mental health and our energy too, is like, just because you're not working doesn't mean you need to be online. Taking that time. And I don't know if you have anything to add on to that before we get to the employee section, since we're kind of already talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's really hard, right? Like some days, I mean, I haven't looked away from my screen since 7 today, right? And it's whatever, 2 o'clock. And I probably won't until 7 today. And that's just sometimes how it goes. I This is like a good reminder to have more breaks because it's just so easy, I think, right? Imagine if you're spending all day at your computer, like, if you're not like a hands-on kind of worker, and then on your breaks, you're watching something on your phone, and then when you're done, you watch TV by yourself or with your partner or whatever. That's just like all day of screens. And personally, if I don't, yeah, it's like it's my brain hurts. You know what I mean? So My one thing is I wish I wanted to read more. I don't really right now, but maybe listening to something and going on a walk. So, because my brain's already tired, maybe that's why. But yeah, for me, it's like working out or getting into nature. And luckily, like in Austin, we have stuff like Barton Springs and whatnot that I really like to just quickly get out somewhere and take a little break. It makes a difference for sure.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think just getting out, and even if it's just walking for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I always send them like, go around the building, go take a walk around the building. I know it's hot, stay in the shaded area. And for me, I mean, my husband and I, we take a walk together every morning, and it's just, you see the weather and you feel it, you hear the birds, and it's just it's very much very good for the mind, body, and soul for sure. So since we were talking about employees a little bit mixed into ourselves, let's talk a little bit about the work dynamics and how important they are, and that they being your network, and let's kind of go into that so that if anyone is listening, if they are an employee, they can really tune in, and then the employers can get a nice reminder. Or, like I said, if there's anyone that's thinking about going into the workforce or even starting their own company, let's talk about those dynamics of the workplace because it is super important. A lot of us spend more time at work than at home, and those dynamics are super
Mhm.
important.
Yes. And I also have an example of when I had my life coaching business, not, several years ago. I would generally work with young professionals who are struggling in their first job or that sort of situation, kind of holistically. And I had this one client who was working for a big corporate company. She was the only girl on a huge team of software engineers. That didn't really matter, but I think the main point was that she was kind of feeling like she hated it, was like wasn't enjoying her job, but then also didn't have anyone at work to kind of like talk to or mingle with. And I also experienced this in my first job until I started making some friends, right? If you go in kind of like a solo person and whether you're liking it or not, you're spending more time at your work environment than you are anywhere else. So my advice to this girl was, hey, like I know you're having a hard time, but like where are other women in the organization that you could maybe just go get lunch with every day and or just get advice about the company or advice about your career, like make some connection. And I got to tell you, like that little piece of advice like changed everything for her. Like nothing about her job changed, but her attitude and her social capital at work changed. And now she had someone kind of like she would look forward to seeing and could go out to lunch with and could help her. And you need that kind of, I would say almost like social or emotional support is one angle. And then the other angle is no matter how great or horrible your job is, you have a set of potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of people to talk to. And those people can turn into plenty of people to help you in the future. So don't overlook people that you work with. Even if you don't understand what your relationship is now, you never know later. And maybe one example of that is when I started Advize, as we're interviewing people, we got to our first 100 interviews by me just reaching out to people that I knew on LinkedIn from my work and from school saying, hey, I started this thing. Do you have 30 minutes to interview? I would really appreciate it. And people signed up like that just to help me. And I tried to explain the power of networking to one of our student interns. They're like, what is networking? What is networking? And I literally pulled up my LinkedIn and I said, name a company. And they started listing random companies like Snap, Microsoft, Salesforce. And I knew 1 to 3 people who worked there from LinkedIn, just from the relationships and people I've added and connected with over the years. And that's when they were like, oh, you met that person 10 years ago. And now you could reconnect with that person to actually like help you.
Yeah, building a network is huge. And I don't think we think about it as a young kid. We're not thinking about it. Like, so for instance, so similar to what you're saying is, so I went to a private Catholic school growing up, and I went to a high school, it was Carter Mooney, and my parents made a lot of sacrifices for me to go to that school. And I loved the experience. I played sports, I was into clubs, and I very much put myself into everything because I wanted the connections, I wanted all these things. But at that point, I wasn't thinking about where they would be in the
Yeah.
future. And some of the people that I went to high school with are very, very powerful. They're very, very successful. And when I go to events, I can, it's not just shaking hands. Hi, how are you? It's like, hey, how are you? How's the family? And I feel like you begin building that network as a kid, whether you're on a soccer team, a volleyball team, you're in 4-H with these individuals. And I think it's easier now because they all have Snapchat and they have Facebook and LinkedIn and they have all the things, the resources. Like for us, we just have to go off memory. I'm in my 40s. So we didn't have,
Yeah.
I still have the same phone number I've had since I was in my early 20s. But I think you're right. It's building those networks, connecting with those people, and you never know the person sitting next to you where they're going to end up. That could potentially be your boss. And I think that I want to say into this point too, like always be nice to everybody. Never act like you're too good because that person could be your boss and that could enhance or, discount like your future roles, how much money and the different opportunities that you're making. So I love that you're talking about that network and how important that is. And, I think too, in regards to what you're saying is finding the people within the organization. You never One of them can be a mentor. One of them can take you under their wing. And in order for them to do that, they've got to see you having conversations and connecting with them as well. And that can be scary. So when
Yeah.
you're talking to these individuals, how are you coaching them to have these conversations and boosting their confidence to where they will go up to someone that may be in a different stage or different season or like, even a different department? How are you encouraging them to have these conversations?
Yeah, and that's really one of the main points of our company and these videos because we're seeing students increase their confidence to go talk to somebody and also in their skill to hold these conversations. If you think about it, if you're a student who you like your marketing class and maybe you want to reach out to people in marketing and you see this VP of marketing, Nike, that's from your school. You still don't really know who they are or what they do and all that stuff. But if you hear a couple marketing people talk about why they like marketing, all of a sudden the students are seeing that evidence to that they can actually use in a reach out note to someone in marketing or, hey, I watched your video. Now I want to can we expand on this? I'm really interested in a career in marketing. Can we talk for 20 minutes? So that's kind of like the advise angle. But from more of a general angle, I would say that people generally want to help other people. And I think people don't realize that, especially if they're introverted. I never really was that confident in it until I did sales in my first job. And all of a sudden I was cold calling Fortune 100 executives. And I was like, they're never going to answer the phone and talk to me. Guess what? They did. So it's kind of that confidence of just kind of like going for it. But then a couple quick tips to do, just generally thinking about relationships, building them, connecting with anybody. I don't care if it's romantic, business, whatever. People like a couple things, just generally speaking. They really like to connect with people when they have something in common. So if you can find something you have in common with someone, it can be little, it can be big. That's why starting with someone who's an alumni of your school can be really easy because they see a younger version of them in you and you're a student. So play into that because when you're a student, people want to help you and are more open to it. So kind of play that. I'm a student. I love your background, blah, 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 and just go for the ask. And that will help a lot. And also using that in your messaging, having a specific ask is helpful.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And it can be intimidating, it can be scary as well. I remember I got hired at a company and my mom knew the CEO, so I got the job, not because I was skilled or I deserved it, but I just got hired at this company. And then my boss basically just was like, just go do some data entry or something. I was like, I am not a data entry person. I'm on the phone, I can talk to people, I should be doing sales. And I had to basically go back to her and say, hey, I basically want to learn from you. I want to be you. I want to learn these skills. I can excel and outwork half those people in that department. You're not utilizing me. And it took me going and explaining this to her. And then she's like, okay, hot shot. You think you're so hot. She threw me an account that she had been working on for 8 years. And after 3 months, I was able to get that account secured. And she took me under her wing and she completely developed me. And I'm having lunch with her next Tuesday. And this was over 15 years ago. And the reason I bring her up is because I was at a corporate training just 2 months ago, and they were like, list 3 people that you want to thank or that you're grateful for that developed or that mentored you. And of course, my parents were the top 2, and then she was the third one. And I could have just left that company. I could have just done the data entry. So I think you have to speak up and kind of fight for yourself. And that does take some courage as well. So I do want to encourage anyone that's listening to like own your strengths and speak up, because you never know who will, take you under their wing and help develop you.
Yeah, and that's awesome, by the way. And I'll acknowledge that it's totally scary. Like it really is. But also, if you put yourself in their shoes, which also helps you put some perspective around anything, really is like, what is this kind of person going to listen to? Like, what do they care about? What's their day? Like, when's a good time to approach them? Like, literally think about them and what they're trying to like think about, and then make your strategy around that to the best that you can. You can figure that out. Like, put yourself in their shoes. But also, even if it's not perfect, people will respect that you tried, right? And if they don't, they're not nice, I think, right? Like they could let you down easy if there's not a fit or something like that. But honestly, I feel like if you go for it and someone shoots you down, like I think that says more about them than you. So I would say go for it, and people should respect the hustle, kind of like Jenny's story was like, well, fine, I'll give you a shot, right? She probably wasn't super sold on it, but was like, why not? She like went for it. I'm going to let her try it out, because why the hell not?
Right. What is she going to lose? And also, too, you learn so much in that process. And even if they were to shoot you down, you would probably go back and say, okay, why did they shoot me down? Was it about the timing? Was it about the approach? Should I have went this route? Or maybe I could have attempted this person. Also, like, I think you just have to, like you had said, like, understand them and their approach and the timing. I had a young lady, Jovita Robertson, it was on my podcast, and she was like a coach with helping people have these conversations with their bosses too. So I just wanted to add this, like even when you're setting up that meeting with them or you're reaching out to them, don't just say, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes?" Like she was encouraging us, "Hey, give them a little bit of insight so they understand what you want to meet about." Especially if you're an
Yes.
employee and you want to meet with your boss. Like don't let your boss think that you're about to quit on them. Give them a little bit of insight so that they can the right mindset, they can do the research, they can start thinking. Because I think that's important too. So that's going to help you get the solution or the answers or the guidance that you're looking for if you give a little bit of insight of why you want to meet. And then if you do that too, they may ask maybe your immediate supervisor, like, "Hey, so and so reached out to me. Like, what do you think about this?" And I just think that there's just communication and
Yeah.
to get what you want.
It's almost like if I texted Jenny before this podcast, hey, can we talk? Right? Without like just, hey, can we talk? Or,
I'd be like, "Oh
someone
my
I'm
God, she's
dating, oh my gosh, she's going to bail on me, or like they're going to break up with me. But if you just say, hey, can we talk about our travel plans for next week sometime this week? Very different. And then they have like some expectation, right?
I think a lot of times we just go into panic mode, right? Or like we expect the worst.
Yeah,
So
it's great.
I want to encourage you to get my book, The Stroke It Guide, available on Amazon and my website. The book is what you need to know from the boardroom to the bedroom. It talks about how to stroke yourself, your spouse, your partner, your friends, your family, most importantly, your employer, employees. And of course, there's a chapter just for the bedroom. Go to Amazon today and get my book, The Stroke It Guide. So I want to spend, just because we've got about 15 more minutes, I do want to spend a little bit of time in the entrepreneurship sector of the podcast and kind of get your expertise on that. Uh, Obviously, you're learning about entrepreneurship, and it has a lot of highs, it has a lot of lows. You lose a lot of sleep, you lose a lot of money, it requires lots of energy. Requires a lot of partners as well, and having a solid plan. And some people don't need a plan; they just kind of just everything falls in space. But I believe in having a really great business plan and meeting with mentors. But I'd like for you to share some of your experience about entrepreneurship and some advice that you would have for anybody that's considering it.
Yes. When people say that, I'm like, okay, it definitely is a roller coaster. What am I going to talk about first? Okay, so I would say one of the, I guess one of the main lessons in kind of like any idea that you have would be to really think about and test who and what your customer cares about, not what you care about. I think that's a really easy thing to say. People tell that to you. But like, for example, I had this whole idea for Advize, right? And I went out and built something. And I did talk to clients at that point, but I think people should be doing that way more and way more aggressively before they decide to invest, before they decide to start, before they go spend a lot of money, because you need evidence and feedback, again, like taking action in the market with your assumptions. Like, are universities going to care about this? Are they going to pay for it? Before you make your whole business plan and like spend all this time, I think getting really close to the customer and asking really key questions and really testing your assumptions all the time is really important. Otherwise, you're really living in kind of like idealistic mode and like, this is all going to work out and my dreams are going to come true. But you need to stay close enough to the market and reality for it to work.
Yes. And I want to be okay with not everyone believing in it or giving you feedback because, you know, I did a business plan and I talked to everybody about it because I wanted to talk to everybody about it because I wanted them to give me their initial advice. I wanted them to tell me their feedback. I wanted them to mention things I didn't think about. And I remember at one point my husband's like, you got to stop talking to everybody about this company. Like someone's going to steal it. And I was like, not enough people have the drive, the confidence, the courage, the money, the energy to actually go and start the company. But I learned so much with talking to so many people and talking to potential customers and spending a lot of time in developing that business plan. And for me, I worked on my business plan for 7, 8 years. And I remember I wanted to get a mentor and he gave me the business canvas. I don't know if you're familiar with the business canvas, but it's basically a
Just so.
snapshot of a business plan, but it's only like one piece of paper. It took me forever to complete that. I was like so scared about it. And once I did it, then he began meeting with me and he was testing me. He's like, if you can complete this, you can get this out on paper, then I know that you're willing to do the work for when we start meeting as well. So I think that you do have to go and talk to people and have those conversations. And your idea may be good, but it may not be good either. So then move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point. I think when I'm talking about this, I'm not saying necessarily sharing my idea with a bunch of people and getting their opinions, right? Because that's one thing. A lot of people don't think what I do would work, right? Like a lot. But I felt like it would. So there's also that like instinct and drive and vision and all of that and that noise where that like internal thing like pulling you toward it that I think really like I think successful business owners have or entrepreneurs, and you can almost like see a market that maybe other people can't and maybe they're a little bit pessimistic. But I guess what I'm talking about is specifically like just talking to people about their problems related to your thing and just like making sure there is a problem to solve and then asking them questions about like what kind of solutions. So then you can really like frame what you're doing to match what they're doing, to be like a little more specific on them.
Yeah, 100%. And I always encourage people to start their own businesses if they have the drive, if they have the energy. Because I know some people are like, I want to start a business, and I was like, no, you're a great employee. Like you're a great VP. You're a great team member. These are not people that want to eat, sleep, breathe, sweat, and do it 24/7. And I do think that a lot of entrepreneurship, especially in the first, 10 to 15 years, is going to require hands-on all the time and not going to be your focus. And you're going to have to sacrifice a lot of other things in order to do that. Like sacrificing having a family, sacrificing having the dream house, sacrificing driving the fancy car. When I was starting my company, I had to like trade in my Lexus and I went and got a Honda Accord. I had to cancel the tanning subscription, cancel Massage Envy, not
Yeah.
get a bottle of wine, just get a glass of wine. So I think there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make.
That's been hard for me too, because I was kind of living the LA lifestyle, had a great job, fully remote. Like my best friends were there. My sister was there. I was hanging out in Malibu doing all the things. And then it was like living with family, no money, middle of nowhere, I think that's been honestly probably one of the harder things for me is like the emotional trade-off, because it's hard to fight knowing that, okay, well, if I stop this, I could have that, right? Like, okay, well, and then it is hard to have those moments where you're like, people are saying, well, why doesn't she just go get a job? Like, or you're telling yourself, well, I could just go get a job and then my problems would be solved, right? Or like my money problems would be solved, right? And I could live wherever I want. I could do these things. And that's why it's such like a big journey, I guess, because it's helped me grow tremendously over the last few years because I've realized that I actually don't care about that stuff as much as I care about this. I really don't. And like money is great, but to me, it's not everything. Like I'm not going to go kill myself and do a job that I don't believe in for some more money versus like what I'm doing now that can have so much impact and something I want to wake up doing every day. So I think you have to really be attuned to that and like feel that and decide that before you do it. Because even in business plans, everything looks great on paper. You're like, yep, year 3, I'm going to be profitable, pay myself $300K. It's going to be great. And then you're like, oh, my revenue's not there yet. It's like, yeah. So it's hard, but you kind of need to find your next milestone, figure that out, and then move on to the next one. And personal milestones have to go with the company milestones, right? Like in 2 years, I can't not be making any money, right? To me, that's like too much. So you have to kind of find your moments of success, turn it into the next thing and like the next thing. And that's a little bit different for each individual and each different, business and business partner for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing to that is having like a 1-3-5 for your company and having a 1-3-5 personally as well, and making sure that they do align. Because I think if you have like, okay, in 3 years I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be able to get this, then in the business, nope, I can't buy this. Nope, I can't do this yet because I'm trying to get here, or like vice versa as well. So
Yeah.
those are gonna kind of keep you accountable, and it's a very humbling experience. Everything is against you. Everybody else is like waiting for you to fall flat on your face and to fail. And all these people are, underestimating you. And it takes a lot of self belief and like a lot of self determination and like knowing that you're going to be successful, that you can do it. And, if I didn't believe in myself, there's no way, that I would be where I'm at today. So if you are considering the entrepreneurship route, definitely go for it, or, connect with Emily. So, Emily, as we wrap up, I would love for you to give our listeners one piece of tips or tools or action that they could do today to implement in their life that would lead them to having the career or the life they want.
Yeah. So one thing I would do is I would either find some sort of visualization, or they call it manifestation online, or you could just give yourself permission to like unapologetically write down your dream life and like actually imagine like what that is and what version of you that is that gets all that stuff, right? And then I would think about, well, how does that person act every day? What are some of their habits? What are they doing? And it's probably some level of you or version of you that you haven't been before. But if you really tune into that person, like feel who it is, and then tomorrow or today, like do one thing that that person would do and act how that person would act. That's one thing that's really helped me go from maybe afraid startup founder convincing people of my idea to authoritative CEO that has an idea that's going to change the world. And guess what? People really buy from the latter person, not the first person. And that's like part of also my entrepreneurship journey that I think can help with like any aspect of life, but especially like being that version of who you need to be to get the things you want.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. Well, Emily, thanks so much for sharing all of that. If our listeners want to connect with you, which I'm sure they do, what's the best way? Website, social media? How do they get all of your greatness?
LinkedIn's probably the best. So LinkedIn is just Emily McSherry on LinkedIn. And then for Advize, we have a newsletter. So you'll see my Advize on my page, and then you can sign up for a newsletter. That's where we have all the good stuff about our wins with universities, schools, announcements, all that good stuff. And you can also find the website there.
Awesome. Well, you have been a pleasure to speak with. Thank you so much for your time. If you ever come to Sarasota, I want you to come and talk to all of our students as well.
Yeah.
So many of them would benefit from hearing from you. Obviously, I'm going to be sharing your website with all of our students as well. And thank you for all that were tuning in. If you liked what you heard today, I want to encourage you to share this with 5 of your friends. Maybe it's parents, friends, maybe it's a coworker that could benefit from hearing Emily's story, all of the greatness that we shared with you today. We're wishing you a beautiful day. Once again, take ownership of your life. You will be great. Just got to believe in yourself. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in to today's podcast. I want to inspire you to send this podcast to 5 of your friends that you think would benefit.